let's get into tonight's show. So, the other night, we actually went live, and I even said myself, I feel like this is going to happen. I was feeling pretty confident. Maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. Maybe I got a little bit, a little ahead of myself, because I'm thinking, dude, how, first off, Blake Snell has not signed, obviously, right? It doesn't seem like there was any sort of end in sight. I'm starting to think, is this guy even going to pitch this coming year? I mean, I don't know. Is he going to go pitch for the team? What was it, the Asian Breeze that, Trevor Bauer is pitching for? Is he going to go toss a couple of innings for them? Like, what are we doing? And the other night, we got a little bit of a story that the Astros were in hot pursuit, or serious pursuit was the exact quote, from Ken Rosenthal and Chandler Rome. And the last time we had a report on the Astros going after someone, which was Josh Hader, that got done, what was it, the next day? So I'm thinking, man, we haven't seen anything with the Angels. We've seen a whole bunch of nonsense with the Yankees. That felt like the entire time, it was Boris just peddling stuff to John Heyman. It didn't seem like there was any hope at all for like anything until a team like the Astros emerged, who I did bring up as a possible suitor for Jordan Montgomery, about a few weeks ago. I'm thinking, hey, you know what? The Astros, Verlander's going to miss some time. They got some question marks health-wise in the rotation, and then Urquidy went down this past week, having some elbow issues. And then, I thought a little while ago maybe Montgomery could make some sense. He was just pitching in the state of Texas, so maybe he can't go back to the Rangers, but he can go to Houston, right? But I never thought of Blake Snell as a possibility, right? And it actually does make sense considering, where the Astros are at when it comes to their talent. Sure, you did just re-sign Jose Altuve, or you extended him, but who knows if they bring back Bregman? Bregman, I think, is going to get himself anywhere from $25 to $30 million a year. Are the Astros going to do that? Bregman honestly feels like a guy, he kind of gives me the George Springer vibes where I feel like he's going to head elsewhere, right? Bregman is a guy, man, could you imagine? Honestly, you got Snell and Montgomery still on the board. Bregman is one of those guys who I wonder has a similar market to Matt Chapman next year, right? Chapman just signed not too long ago. I wonder if it ends up taking that long for someone like Alex Bregman because, this is a guy that's pretty limited. Sure, can go play some shortstop a couple of games, but you're looking at Bregman as a full-time third baseman, right? It's very similar in terms of the versatility in the field. So I wonder if it ends up being very similar next year with Alex Bregman. So I wonder if he ends up just going elsewhere, going to another team. We've seen already, teams like the Mets. We'll talk about the Mets in just a little bit as well. The Mets could be a possibility for Bregman, the Yankees, so on. There's going to be a whole bunch of teams, right? But the whole point is that the Astros, that window has to close eventually, right? Or they're at least going to have to go through some kind of a transition, going to some younger talent at some point, right? Jose Altuve is not going to be the Jose Altuve we know forever, right? Framber Valdez at some point, he's going to be a free agent soon. Could he end up going elsewhere? I mean, we'll see. At some point, the Astros are going to have to focus on developing young talent. With Blake Snell, he fits into that window if he were to do a short deal. That's why I was thinking the other night. I'm like, oh, this makes a ton of sense, right? The Astros, they're a team. They want to win every single year. And yeah, they might have to put their payroll through quite a raise here, right? They would be in the 280s if they signed Blake Snell. But I'm thinking, you know what? If there's a team that's, willing to do it, that really could use some pitching and, maybe stretch their payroll a little bit, Blake Snell makes a ton of sense for the Astros. However, we got this story today. The Astros reportedly long shots to land Blake Snell. Just a couple of days after the previous report came out. This came from Bob Nightingale. Now, I've actually seen a lot of people on Twitter Other guys out there, other channels out there talking about this, saying he's asking for too much. The report from Bob Nightingale was that he is looking for a 2-year guarantee, which would include an opt-out after this coming year, for $60 million. He's looking for $30 million per year. I've been seeing a lot of people out there saying that he's asking for too much. I disagree. I actually think Blake Snell is very much worth that for a couple of years. I absolutely think that. Say what you will about the inconsistencies, but when you look at Blake Snell, when you look at his value from the last couple of years, right? 14th overall last year in Fangraph WAR. Voters are going to look more at the baseball reference numbers, especially for the pitchers. So he's going to, Fangraphs, they didn't like him as much as some of the other guys. But results-wise, Blake Snell was pretty much the easy choice to go for the Cy Young last year. So, but when you're taking a look at Blake Snell's value over the last couple of years, right? He was worth $33 million roughly this past year when it came to his field value. Right around $28, $29 million in 2022. Average that together, you're looking at around $30 million per season, right? So, and then when you go to baseball trade values, their player value timeline here, they're actually projecting for 2 years, they're actually projecting $66 million for a 2-year contract. Because you also got to think, right? You factor in what he's done recently, but then you also factor in what he's going to do for you in the near future. So you take the value from recent years, combine it with you, when usually free agents, you're looking at, let's say they sign a 5-year deal, you're looking to get the most out of that contract in the first couple of years, right? You're pretty much signing up for 2 to 3 good years of that contract, maybe even 1, and then you deal with the last couple of years if there ends up being some problems, right? So that's usually how these free agent contracts tend to go. Some of them are just bad right from the start, right? So with Blake Snell, I absolutely think this is fair, and I actually think and I don't think a lot of people noticed this today. You got a lot of people out there saying he's asking for too much. I actually think this suggests that Scott Boras is starting to come down, because this is fair to me, in my opinion. I think I don't see how this is too much when you looked at what he's done the last couple of years. I don't think this is too much. I saw all the comments today, all of them, all over Twitter, like, oh my goodness, Scott Boras, like he's at it again. Good old Scott Boras asking for way too much money. No, this is actually, I think, very fair. You can disagree with me if you want, but numbers are numbers. And when it comes to the field value, Blake Snell has put up an average of $30 million per year over the last couple of years. Say what you will, but it is what it is. So I actually think this suggests that Scott Boras, he's quitting this game that he's playing, and he's actually starting to come down to some fair numbers. Sorry, there's my hot take, if you want to call that a hot take. So I think this actually could be a sign that Snell is probably going to sign soon. I find it also crazy that these numbers are just out here. It almost makes it come off like desperate, right? That he's even like, how are these numbers even getting out? Like, I does that make it seem like Boras at this point is putting this out there? Like, okay, here you go, everyone. Here are the freaking numbers for you. This is what we're looking for. Can anyone match this? Can anyone do something with these numbers? Please, we're looking for $30 million a year for 2 years. Can anyone do this? I think this is showing that Boras is pretty much pushing his chips into the middle of the table right now. I think Boras is basically saying, all right, enough of the talk. Here you go. There's the money we're looking for. Here you go, Bob. Go put this out there. Whatever team comes first with this kind of an offer, you get Blake Snell. So I actually think this is kind of positive news, right? And I see you in the chat, Guido Seguro, you're saying it's a bad take. I disagree with you. I don't think it's a bad take at all, because numbers are numbers, and numbers do not lie, my friend. Numbers do not lie. But you are welcome to disagree with me. I'm just saying. So Blake Snell, definitely one of the more talented pitchers in the game. I do think for 2 years, he is worth 30 per year. I will say 2 years, 60. I think Snell is worth that for 2 years. Now, if you set a 5-year deal, yeah, you're probably not looking at 30 per year. I would actually say probably anywhere like 26, 28 per year, maybe even 27 if you're doing like a 5-year deal. I think that is, yeah. But for 2 years, yeah, absolutely. 30 million per year, I think that's absolutely fair. But I can also understand the concerns. There's, been some issues with the groin the last couple of years. He tends to be a guy that goes on these runs, right? And the walks. One thing about the walks, the way he actually pitched last year, I've mentioned this article a few times on this channel. You're probably getting sick of me bringing it up. But there's actually an article on Fangraphs that suggests that it was more done by design, the amount of walks that he did, because he didn't want to give in to mistakes, right? He just let batters just go, right? Because he pitched very far out of the shadow zone a lot, which was kind of an irregularity there. So, either way, though, walks are still walks. So there are concerns about how deep he can go into games. Either way, though, adding someone like Blake Snell, even if he only gives you 5 innings, 6 innings, it's still 5 or 6 really good innings, right? So I think he's worth it. We're going to have to wait and see what ends up happening here. But, I mean, if the Astros are long shots at this point, again, kind of when I was thinking of the Astros before that story even came out, I was looking at their payroll, and you already got a record payroll here in Houston. 255, roughly, according to Fangraphs. And I was thinking, well, they add Jordan Montgomery. I mean, that's going to be a lot more. But to me, it's like, if you're willing to do it, that's a completely different story. So I don't know. I don't know what the Astros were even looking for. Like, what kind of a number were they thinking? Were they thinking maybe 25? Maybe like I don't know, maybe like a 2-year 50? I don't know. At that point, what's even the difference? I don't know. So this is where I get back to my theory the other night. Do you remember what I said? Do you remember what I said about the Angels the other night? Do you remember me saying, usually agents, what they like to do is they like to manipulate. They like to manipulate these guys in the media. And what other team is in the American League West? The Angels. The Angels have been connected to Blake Snell all offseason. So, and I said the other night, could this just be a leverage play? Because they like to do this with these teams. I don't know. Maybe even sometimes the teams like to put something out there, right? Maybe they're actually putting this news out there to try and get rid of these other teams, right? To stop these teams from trying to get these players, right? There's all this strategy that goes on when it comes to using the media. So, could this end up being maybe the Astros were trying to maybe push the Angels out of it, or maybe Scott Boras himself was trying to get the Angels going a little bit, right? Because you got to think of the Angels, they're looking at their point of view. The Astros end up getting Snell, and the Angels are thinking, oh, well, how the heck are we even going to compete now? They got Snell? So I wonder if there was something going on there. Who knows? Maybe the Astros still end up getting him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'm still going to consider the Angels a possibility because I think they just make a ton of sense for Blake Snell. I don't know, man. They need pitching. I don't even know what the Angels are. I really don't even know what to say about the Angels at this point. If you bring in someone like Snell, maybe bring in possibly one more bat like JD Martinez, we'll talk about him in just a little bit, and then the Angels are all of a sudden a pretty competitive team. How competitive? I don't know, but I would think they have to be at least kind of competitive if you bring in two guys like that. You lost Ohtani, so you're basically replacing him with JD and Snell. So, does that really make up Ohtani? The loss of Ohtani? No. But at least it kind of gives you a fighting chance, right? So we'll see. At this point, I was so convinced it was going to be the Astros. Once I saw this, I'm like, okay, yep, cool. All right, that's done. Didn't see this one happening. I was thinking it was over. I'm thinking, get the champagne ready. It's done. I guess not. So I felt good about it the other night, and this one kind of came out of left field for me. So let's move on here to our next story. We got over 300 people in this chat. And you know what? Actually, real quick, while I have you all here, before I get to the next story, I've been wanting to kind of make a quick announcement while I have you. Streams have been a little slow lately, so, we're hitting that 300 mark here. So I figured this is a good time to just make a quick announcement. I'm going to get back to the next story here. But everyone, this coming season, we are going to be adding in some morning shows. This has been something I've been wanting to do for a long time. All right, I've been wanting to do a morning kind of stream where I can go over the games the night prior, right? Kind of go over top stories and whatnot. Just kind of do a quick hangout in the morning, probably an hour or so. So be on the lookout for that this coming year. I'm pretty excited to at least try it out, see how it goes, and if it hits, then great. So just letting you all know while you are here with me, just because it has been a little slow lately. So be on the lookout for that. Morning streams. We're still going to be doing power rankings this coming year. Sunday night power rankings. That's one of the focal points on this show. So make sure you tune in for that. We got a lot of new updates coming through, everyone. A lot of new updates. I'm going to be changing just layouts of things. I got a new intro video coming. I got some changes coming. And, not really huge changes, but, I've been kind of putting in some work on the side. Got the new computer and everything. So, ready for a good season of baseball. So, please join me for this coming season, especially for the morning shows. I'd love for that to have a good turnout in the morning. So, it'd be awesome if you guys can join in. So, anyway, that's enough of that. Here we go. Michael Yanch, thank you for becoming a member for the 21st straight month. I believe we had another... Oscar Cervantes, thank you, my friend. You upgraded your membership. I'm also going to be doing something with memberships this coming year. I kind of want to spice that up a little bit, so be on the lookout for that, and because I got some updates coming along with that too. So here we go, everyone. Let's get to the next story of the night. I can't believe I'm even about to even suggest this. I can't believe I'm even going to make this a possibility. Is it even a possibility? I don't even know. I'm not even trying to manifest anything here, but I can't believe that I'm about to say this. Could the Dodgers be a possibility for Blake Snell? Well, we had a little something from Andrew Friedman. He joined Dodgers Nation. Right? Talking with good old Doug over there. And he made a pretty interesting quote. In our DNA, we can never say we're done. Continue to have conversations. But we feel really good about this team, and not just the 26 guys, but the depth behind it. That being said, we'll continue to explore avenues. And if there's ways we can get better, then we won't hesitate. My goodness. Can we not have Blake Snell go to the Dodgers? Please? Listen, I'm not saying Blake Snell is the only free agent out there, but my goodness, the longer this guy sits out there, and if it's a short-term deal, I wonder if the Dodgers will actually jump all over that. Their payroll is already through the roof. Who cares at this point? You might as well just keep adding. I don't know. I mean, could you? I mean, come on. Like, that, how ridiculous would that be? How ridiculous. I mean, let's just go take a look at this Dodgers team while we're at it, right? And we already know the lineup, right? Betts, now a shortstop. I mean, my goodness. I'll say this real quick about Mookie Betts. I wonder if Mookie Betts, the way, I think this is going to be a pretty, who knows? Let's see how the rest of his career goes. But I wonder, 10 years from now, right? He's above 40 years old at that point. I wonder if we get to a point where we look at Mookie Betts and we say, wow, this guy truly was one of the most amazing players of all time, right? We've already seen what he's done. Let's see what else he does. He still has a lot of time left. But I wonder if people look back and you think, not just looking at the stats, but people go back and say, hey, remember when he was a really good right fielder? Or actually, let's go a step back. Remember when he was playing second base in the minor leagues, and then he became a right fielder, ended up being one of the best right fielders in the game, and then he became a shortstop? Let's see how he does at shortstop. But I wonder if this ends up being something that people remember, right? That he transitioned to such a tough position at this point in his career. I wonder if that's just going to end up being another accolade for him. That is something, man. Like, I'm really excited to see how he does it short. I feel like he was fine there. Last year, he was pretty solid for the most part. So let's see. Anyway, that's enough of that. But we all know the lineup. I don't even really get into the lineup, more than that, right? However, if you look at this rotation, funny enough, Walker Buehler is not here at this point. Walker Buehler, I feel like they said he is going to be, he's not going to be with the team on opening day. So, maybe give him another month or so, and then he ends up joining this rotation. But listen, Tyler Glasnow, he has been phenomenal this spring. But we all know the deal with Tyler Glasnow. You never know. The guy is always dealing with something, right? Last year was his best season overall, and he pitched 120 innings. That's the most innings he's pitched in his career, 120. So there's a lot of question marks with Glasnow. We all know the talent's there, right? Yamamoto. Yeah, obviously this guy is highly touted, right? One of the best pitchers in the world. I'm very excited to see what he can do. Bobby Miller, very good season for him last year, all right? Got some youngsters like Gavin Stone. You got guys like Sheehan in here. Clayton Kershaw is going to come back at some point. Actually, Sheehan is dealing with a bit of a shoulder issue right now. So, and listen, I'm just pointing this out. Not that you need to have a lefty, but they don't have a lefty. I'm just pointing it out, okay? I'm just, saying, hey, just seeing the, not the L as in loss, seeing the L as in, the pitching hand he throws out of would be kind of nice to throw in the middle of this. And then you would have a rotation of Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Buehler when he comes back, and you have Miller as your 5. I'm sorry, I hate to kind of say that. I know Giants fans are probably thinking, Robbie, why are you doing this to me? Why are you saying Blake Snell for the Dodgers? You're killing me. I was going to have a good night's sleep tonight, and then you said this, and now I'm going to have nightmares tonight. I'm sorry. Hey, Diamondbacks fans, I'm sorry. I hate to do that to you, right? But why couldn't they just add Snell? We have seen a connection there, right? Now, I don't know how much I'm banking on it. Dodgers payroll as of right now is right at around $314 million. I mean, why not? Listen, it's not my money. It's easy for me to say, right? Because it is not my money. But if you got the money, you're already going to be paying all this luxury tax anyway. I mean, if you're really going for it, and he has an opt-out, right? If you put an opt-out in there, I mean, why not? You got a ton of money coming off the books. next year. Teoscar's on a 1 year. Hayward, Kelly, Paxton, Kike. Got a couple of lower ones here too. You got a couple of club options. Walker Buehler is going to be a free agent. So you do have a lot of money coming off. So, Snell, I mean, you're basically paying all this money for this year. You got a ton more money coming off at the end of the season. Why not go after Blake Snell? I don't know, man. I just find this quote very interesting, saying that we'll continue to explore avenues. If there's ways we can get better, then we won't hesitate. I mean, at this point, does it just kind of end up being that Snell falls into their laps? Basically, they're just waiting this whole thing out. I don't know. I find it really interesting. If we are looking at, maybe some other free agents that are out there, I mean, when I'm looking at some other guys, does it have to be Snell? If they were to add someone, right? If they do add something, I would imagine it would be for some pitching, right? So could you do someone like Clevinger? Could you do someone like Lorenzen? Lorenzen is a California guy, so maybe they just want to add some depth, right? That's what I would think, Because like I said, you do have some question marks, right? You do got some question marks. Buehler is coming back, right? But how does he hold up? Glasnow, how does he hold up? Yamamoto even. Like, let's say, listen, Yamamoto, I'm excited about him. I'm pretty sure most people out there are excited to see what he can do. But what if, maybe there are some bumps along the way? What if he does, adjusting to the American game, right? Adjusting to the major leagues. What if there ends up being maybe, a couple of little iffy moments where, he's dealing with some fatigue or something, right? We saw it with, Masataka Yoshida last year. That's a different case, right? But, it's adjusting to the game, right? Looking at Kadai Senga, all right? He got off to a bit of a bumpy start last year. He got himself right, ended up having a great year. But look at Kadai Senga now. Even, with all the accommodations that they were giving with him, he's still having issues with his shoulder, coming in, right? Still having issues. Could Yamamoto end up having some issues? We don't know. I mean, you can't predict that. He's been a guy that's very durable. But again, when you're adjusting to a new game, having to completely alter, completely alter, but you're going to have to make adjustments to how you're throwing to these guys compared to the guys you were in Japan, right? So, Yamamoto, I think he's going to be very good this year. But I'm just saying, you never know, right? So maybe adding someone like Snell or even someone like Michael Lorenzen just gives them some more insurance, right? And Snell would be some amazing insurance right there. So I would not count out the Dodgers in making one more splash. I mean, how hilarious would that be? I mean, really, how hilarious would that be? I mean, like, you can't even get mad at it. You just giggle at it, basically. Okay, all right. Now they've added Snell. What do you even do at this point? All right. So I'm not counting out the Dodgers when it comes to adding someone like Snell, especially if the Astros are not willing to make that push and the Angels keep sitting on their hands or the Giants don't really want to. I don't know, man. And hey, it has been said, in the reports that he prefers the West Coast. At some point, something has to give, and something is going to have to happen. And if the Dodgers, all the Dodgers need to do is just say, why not? Yeah, it's a lot of money, but we've already spent a lot of money. Let's just go out there and try to put the best team together that we can. So we'll see. We will see. Speaking of the Mets, let's get to the Mets here in just a second. We got a super chat here. Michael Yench, $5 super chat. Watch Glasnow get wrecked by my Padres on Wednesday. Glasnow's looking great. Glasnow is looking very good this spring. I mean, but is that a surprise? Is that really a surprise? We all know Glasnow is great. right? The stuff that he has, the velocity that he has. I mean, yeah, Glasnow's the real deal. He just needs to stay healthy, right? But yeah, it would be pretty comical, I would say. Twitter land would be on fire if Glasnow got lit up by the Padres. It would be just a meltdown. But let's get to our next story here. And we got a little Mets action going on. And we had a little bit of a report from, I believe it was actually in the Bob Nightingale report that I just had pulled up earlier. It was. All right, so let me actually pull that up here. Here we go. All right, so let's dive into this. Let's talk about next offseason. Why not talk about next offseason? Who cares about this offseason? It's basically, I can't believe this offseason is still happening. Seriously. Like, I hate talking about this offseason already. Anyway, for 2025, the Mets plan to fully jump into the free agent market next winter with the likes of Juan Soto, Alex Bregman, Max Fried, Corbin Burns, and Walker Buehler available. Yet rival teams still believe that all-star first baseman Pete Alonso won't be retained and could be available at the trade deadline. Now, let's talk about that first part real quick. I do think the Mets are a little underrated this year. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they have a chance to be in that mix. I'll just keep it there, right? So we'll have to see how the Mets are doing at that point. If, they're right in the mix for, a wild card spot, I think they end up hanging on to Pete Alonso. But if they are out of it, yeah, Pete Alonso is gone. Like, you have to trade him, right? Now, the one thing with Pete Alonso, because he's playing a low-value position at first base, that's going to knock his value down. People have to remember that. Yes, he can hit for power. Yes, that's going to be very good, right? But when it comes to expanding a player's value, the position matters. It really does, right? Because defense is a thing, everyone. You have to remember, it's not just the bat. It's the defense, too. So Pete Alonso, he's not going to have too much value, but, he's someone that could bring in, especially at trade deadline time, maybe a team really looking for that last bat to solidify that lineup. Yeah, maybe they end up giving up a pretty good prospect for Pete Alonso. I don't think you're giving up any, number one prospects in your system or even a 2 or a 3, but, maybe a team says, all right, we'll give you our number 5 prospect, right? We'll give you our number 4 maybe, right? I could maybe see a scenario like that, also depending on, what team, right? So some teams, like their number 5 prospect could be worth way more than another team's number 5 prospect. So we'll see how that goes. But I personally think the Mets are going to be in that mix for a wild card spot. I don't know. I just feel like the Mets are going to be decent this year. I can't really, if I went into it, it would take forever, right? But I think the Mets, they got more talent than you would think. It just depends on if the upside of a lot of these guys can hit. We'll have to see, right? So there's definitely question marks. Either way, but I could also see a situation where maybe Pete Alonso, if they are in contention, I highly doubt this happens. Maybe you could see a situation where they trade Pete Alonso. Like, let's say maybe Brett Beatty and Vientos are having really good years. Very big if, right? Could you maybe see a situation where if the Mets are like 2 games back of a wild card spot and they need pitching and Beatty and Vientos are hitting really well, could you maybe see a scenario where you ship Pete Alonso somewhere, get some pitching back in return and maybe a prospect along with him? I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Don't yell at me. I'm not saying that's a great idea or that's going to happen. I'm just wondering. David Stearns, he's always thinking outside the box. So I wonder if that could end up being some kind of a possibility. Probably not. I would say, my guess, Pete Alonso, I'd say it's 50-50, right? If they're out of it, he's gone. But if they are in it, good chance he just stays, right? As for next offseason, Juan Soto, I absolutely see them going after. I think the Yankees, I mean, at this point, the Yankees, they probably love to get this guy signed up. But there's a guy there by the name of Spencer Jones who he's having himself a pretty good spring, and he's starting to turn some heads. That dude hit a ball this past weekend that if you just heard the sound of it, I mean, we always love the sound of Ohtani hitting a home run, the way that ball comes off the bat. Spencer Jones got into one this past weekend. Woof. Sounded pretty good, not going to lie. So I wonder, the Yankees, yeah, they're going to go hard after Juan Soto, right? There's no question about it. But I wonder if they will push as hard as the Mets. Very interesting. Very interesting. Bregman, I think this is a big year for Brett Baty. I think it's a very big year for Brett Baty, man, because someone like Bregman, that could make a lot of sense for the Mets, right? So if we're taking a look at the Mets as currently constructed, where we go. So Brett Baty, man, didn't really emerge. I mean, he hurt the team last year. He had a negative Fangraph WAR, a 68 WRC plus. He is projected for some better numbers this year, but he's only projected for a 407 slugging. A 102 WRC plus is pretty good, but I don't know, man. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if they become a player for Bregman too. Max Fried, I wonder with Max Fried. I don't know. I don't think he stays with the Braves. I just don't see it. I don't know. You know, a 30-year-old pitcher. I don't know. I feel like Anthopoulos is probably not going to do it, and I feel like he would have done it by now. But Fried has been having injuries, so I think Anthopoulos, he's kind of at this point where he's like, I don't know, Fried's been up and down, you know, with the durability. Is that someone you really want to give a contract to? Yeah, Chris Sale, they restructured his contract. That was a little different, right? But, you know, we'll see. You know, we will see. I mean, don't forget, they got Shawver, you know, Elder. You know, they got a couple of young guys here too. Fried, it makes a lot of sense to keep him in the fold too. So we'll see. I do wonder, though, Fried, I don't see him going to the Mets. I just don't see that. I feel like if he does go somewhere, I don't know. We're talking about the Dodgers here. Could they end up just emerging, right? They traded for Tyler Glasnow. They had no issues with the injury history. You know, Max Fried, he's been dinged up a little bit the last couple of years. He's an LA guy, California guy. Maybe that could be someone for the Dodgers, right? Or, you know, the Angels, I mean, if they're not, I mean, I would think probably not at this point. If they're not going hard after Blake Snell, I would think they're probably not going to go hard after Fried, right? Could you see a team like the Giants emerge for Max Fried? I don't know. They just traded for Robbie Ray, so I don't know. So I could see maybe the Dodgers emerging. So we'll see. Corbin Burns, he's going to be the big ticket guy next year when it comes to the pitching market. That market is going to be really interesting, in my opinion. I wonder, man. I honestly wonder if my Red Sox get involved. I really do. That might sound crazy. I know you're looking at me right now and you're thinking, oh my goodness, here comes Giraffe Neck Robbie again. Here comes the coping. No. Hear me out. I actually wonder if Corbin Burns could be a possibility for the Red Sox next year because they got a lot of young guys coming up. And if they prove, you know, let's say Meyer, Anthony and Teal come up this year and they really show something and they got some other guys that are playing well and the Red Sox feel like they need to make a splash because they have said, Breslow has said, those aggressive signings will happen, but the timing needs to be right. Right now, the Red Sox, yes, I think they should sign Jordan Montgomery 2 months ago, right? 3 months ago. Shoot, 2 years ago, they should have signed him. That's a joke. But right now, when you look at the timing, right, the Red Sox, they're still waiting on these young players to come up. And I think they're just waiting for everything to just kind of mesh together, right? Because they want the young guys to be the centerpiece of the team moving forward, right? Not even just the big three I mentioned, Vaughn Grissom, right? Someone like him, Wilyer Abreu, Casas, who's obviously in the majors already. They want the young core to lead the way, and then that is when they're going to make a big splash. When those guys are showing that they can carry the team, Brian Bayo obviously in the rotation too. When they are showing that they can carry the Red Sox, that's when they're going to make the signing, like when they signed David Price, back in 2016, and then they traded for Sale because they were entering that competitive window. Are we maybe a year too soon? Yeah, it's possible. But Corbin Burns, that could be a similar, like David Price kind of a signing next year, right? So we'll see. Walker Buehler, I wonder if he ends up just staying with the Dodgers, honestly. So either way, but the Mets here, yeah, I could see the Mets in the tabloids. They're going to be popping up all over the place for these guys. Juan Soto is going to be the big one, though. We'll see. I definitely see Bregman being a possibility for sure, especially if Beatty doesn't have a good year. So, hey, could they get involved with Corbin Burns too? I don't know. But the Mets, they are going to be interesting. However, there was a little something here on JD Martinez. And let me actually, where is it? I think I might have clicked out of it. No, I did not. We have a little something here on the Mets from John Heyman. This was yesterday.
Then let's talk about, you reported last week that the Mets have been in contact recently with JD Martinez. He's another big name free agent still out there, unsigned. We're less than 2 weeks from opening day. Is there a possibility that the Mets can make a deal happen and sign the DH to help protect that lineup and lengthen that lineup and give some protection to Pete Alonso?
Yeah, I mean, I like that word possibility. That's always a good word, right? That gives you an out because we don't know. It's a fluid situation. Obviously, turned down the $15 million or so from the Giants, did not want to go there to the ballpark. I have heard JD Martinez likes the idea of the Mets, likes the idea of the Angels. Both those teams are in contact now and I was actually just in Tempe down the road this way. That was about, 40.
Okay. John Heyman put out he put out a tweet this past weekend. I actually need to go open this tweet. This tweet made me laugh when I read it. I think he literally woke up from a nap when he put where is it? It made me laugh. Did he delete it? I don't know. Was it like a retweet maybe? It was so funny. Like the spelling was so bad on it. I don't know. He might have deleted it. I think he might have deleted it. Maybe it was a couple days ago. This guy's spelling was so bad in the tweet. Oh my goodness. It made me think of just all the times that he's just made all of these mistakes. I don't know. I think he might have deleted it. Maybe it's not even there anymore. But anyway, JD Martinez, right? We're sticking with the Mets. Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Ton of sense for the Mets. However, there are reports as well that the Mets, they are more willing at this point to give their young guys a look. Like this could be a good chance for Vientos to really show what he can do, right? Give him as many at-bats as you can. I mean, you might as well. I mean, if you're not going to sign JD Martinez, right? If you are looking towards the future, yeah, Vientos is a power bat where last year between AAA and the majors, he had 25 home runs. So, I mean, he had 9 homers last year over 65 games. I could see the argument for just giving him the reps at DH. Let him, see what he can give you. So, because if you sign JD Martinez, it's hard to see where Vientos ends up getting the playing time. We'll see. He did mention the Angels as well. Now, if he does go to the Mets, that definitely helps. So that would make their lineup very solid, in my opinion. The Angels, when it comes to the Angels over the years, they historically don't want to sign the pitchers, right? They're more inclined to go for the position players, right? The hitters. So right now, you do got Drury slated at DH. So I would think with Drury, he's a guy that can play multiple positions. So he'll find his way into the lineup. Probably him and, like Rengifo. How is Rengifo doing this spring? Rengifo so far this spring, over 8 games, he's only hitting 174. So, I don't know. I mean, he had a 114 WRC plus last year. So maybe that's just a position where, I don't know, maybe Drury can get involved there. But again, he can play other positions. He can go play some outfield, go play some second. So maybe you just do that. And then I don't know. And then we've also seen the Marlins attached with JD Martinez. The problem with the Marlins is that they just never want to spend the money. They brought in Tim Anderson, but my goodness, you have Aviseo Garcia right now slated as your DH. Aviseo Garcia at this point, this is a guy he's a bench outfielder at this point, right? Maybe you can mix him in, get him some at-bats against lefties with Jesus Sanchez, getting the at-bats against the righties. So that's where I pretty much see Aviseo Garcia at this point. So, but then again, we'll talk about the Marlins here in a little bit. My goodness. But JD Martinez could make some sense here. I still keep wondering if the Orioles could be a possibility. All right. You could just do a situation where Mountcastle plays first. O'Hearn had a respectable season last year. He can be just more of like that lefty bat that comes off the bench. And then JD could be your DH. So maybe you could see a situation like that. Possibly. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But the Mets, look out for them. JD Martinez, I would imagine this guy, he's got to sign. The thing with JD is he doesn't really need to sign right now, right? It's crazy that Snell and Montgomery are not on teams because they are going to probably miss opening day at this point. Sure, Blake Snell's been throwing like simulated games or whatever, throwing bullpens. I think he threw 4 innings or something. It's not the same thing, right? You got to be pitching in games. So teams like, they might like that these guys are throwing off of mounds and whatever right now, but they're still not going to throw these guys out there on opening day, right? They're still going to give these guys some time, maybe give them a couple of starts at the minor league complex the first couple of weeks of the season. But JD Martinez, right? I mean, the guy's been hitting forever. He's been taking swings, obviously, wherever he is. He can just pick up a bat and just step into the lineup on day one, right? So JD Martinez, we'll see where he ends up going. But everyone, before I do get to the next part of the show, if you can, hit that like button for me. The goal is 200 for tonight. We're at right around 150. So if you can help us out getting to 200, I'll love you forever. I already do love you forever, but I'll love you even more if you can help us get to 200 on the night. And if you are new still to the chat and you have yet to subscribe, hey, think about it. We're talking baseball here all the time. Again, going to be doing some morning shows this coming year. So you definitely want to subscribe if you are new. Now, let's transition here into our next story. And I kind of made a joke about this in the beginning of the show. Are we going to have robots pitch at some point? Because it feels like arms are just falling off left and right. I don't know. I think this needs to be looked into more extensively because it's kind of starting to become an issue, right? It's like, I remember back in the early 2000s, when I first started really becoming a diehard fan, I remember when a guy needed Tommy John surgery, it was like it was the end of the world. Like, oh my goodness, Tommy John surgery. It was like a death sentence, all right? Like, oh my God, we're gonna miss him for the whole year. We don't have him anymore. Like it's over. It's all over. How are we gonna even compete without him, right? And even when he would come back, whoever it was back in the day came back from Tommy John, you're thinking like, oh, is he gonna be okay? But nowadays, it seems like, okay, guy gets Tommy John, right? Garrett Cole's a little different, right? Because Garrett Cole is one of the best, if not the best pitcher in the game. absolutely an argument he is the best pitcher in the game. So when that news happens for him, you're like, oh, Garrett Cole, right? But it's such a normal thing these days that where I'm wondering at this point, like, what is happening? Right? It's like all of these talented guys are just dropping like flies, right? And the Marlins are getting hit really bad right now. So now Uri Perez is scheduled to undergo imaging with his elbow, right? He came out the other day. They said he had a broken fingernail. I remember when I first read this, I misread it completely. I'm like, he's getting imaging done for a broken fingernail? I'm like, what? What is happening? Then I reread. I'm like, oh, I'm just a dummy. I can't read. So then I was like, oh, it's for his elbow. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, goodness gracious, one of the top pitching prospects in the game. One of the top young pitchers in the game. What is Hector saying? Andrew Lee, what did Hector say? Let me know. But Uri Perez. Look at the Marlins injured list right now. Alcantara's already out for the whole year. There's another Tommy John. Edward Cabrera's got a shoulder problem. Braxton Garrett is dealing with shoulder soreness. And now Uri Perez with an elbow. The Marlins' one strength that they had, the rotation, is now all of a sudden looking like an empty abyss. Jesus Luzardo, they have 4 lefties in this rotation. I'm just pointing that out. You got Jesus Luzardo leading the way. AJ Puck is converting from a reliever to a starter. He's now your number 2, projection-wise. Trevor Rogers, I would still say, is your 2. But Trevor Rogers, he had a whole bunch of issues last year. Ryan Weathers. I mean, I don't know. Well, what even is this rotation at this point? They went from having so much pitching to having no pitching. I mean, my goodness, right? So, luckily they do have, they got some other guys, right? And I'm looking for one name here. Did they even put the name in here? Okay, they didn't even put the name. But one guy to look out for is Max Meyer. Big Max Meyer fan. Do like him. All right, so that is one guy. I would imagine he's probably going to get a shot at some point. But remember, he is coming back, right? He didn't pitch at all last year. So I wonder if maybe he starts the year in the minors, gets a few starts under him, and then we see him at some point. But Max Meyer was their top pick from a few years ago. So be on the lookout for him. He's pitching well this spring. 3 games, 7 innings, but he hasn't started a game, though. So that's where I wonder. I think he's going to probably go to the minors, and he'll probably get his starts there, right? They probably just wanted to ease him in, so we'll see. He did pitch well this spring, so look out for Max Meyer at some point. But all of a sudden, I don't know, man. I'm not feeling the Marlins this year. I was feeling the Marlins last year, and I was right about it. This year, I'm not feeling them at all. Like, I'm worried about this team. I think this team is going to unload at the trade deadline. I am predicting that right now. I think Jesus Luzardo is going to get unloaded. I think Tanner Scott is going to get unloaded. Nardi, maybe you do something with him, right? You got these bats. Maybe Tim Anderson ends up having himself a bounce back year. You could trade him. Luis Ariz was in trade rumors this past offseason. Maybe you could trade him. Bell. I really think the way this Marlins team is going right now, I wonder if you're going to see a massive sale at the deadline, right? I think they could be that team, that they're that team where you're like looking for them to make all the trades, right? We've seen those teams over the last couple of years, like the Cardinals last year. The White Sox made some trades, didn't trade Dylan Cease, but we saw, mainly with the Cardinals last year, really unloading some pieces, right? Jordan Montgomery being the one big one that the Rangers took advantage of, helped them win a World Series. My prediction is the Marlins are going to be that team this year. I don't think this lineup is great. I think it could be okay. But if you don't have your starting rotation intact, this team is cooked. I mean, like, Luzardo is going to be, he was already in trade rumors this offseason. He is going to be all over everywhere you go when it comes to trade rumors. Once those start picking up in like June, Jesus Luzardo, I predict, is going to be the big ticket this trade deadline. I will predict right now, probably going to get wrong. Jesus Luzardo will be on a different team after the trade deadline. So I'm not feeling this Marlins team at all, everyone. Sorry. And now the Reds also, this is not pitching, but the Reds, they got hit with a big blow. Big blow for the Reds, man. TJ Friedl fractured his wrist on a diving catch, rolled under him. I've had that happen with me. When I played in my junior year of high school, when I played for the high school team, during practice, I just laid out for a ball. Like, I remember all the coaches were like, "Oh man, what a catch that was!" Right? I mean, I think I just I sprinted, and I just fell. I don't even think I dove. I just fell. But in the process, my wrist like rolled under me. Holy crap, that was one of the worst pains I've ever had in my life. Like, I thought I broke my wrist. Horrible. Ended up being like a week or two, and I was good. But yeah, Friedl, man, fracturing his wrist, that's a big blow for the Reds because he's probably going to miss, I would think, a couple of months at least. They're going to reassess him in 3 to 4 weeks, so then he's probably going to go on a rehab assignment at that point. We'll see. I'm thinking you're probably not going to see him until like June, probably. You know, maybe mid to late May, June, something like that. But Friedl had a really good year last year. 138 games, hit 279, 352 on base, 467 slugging, a 116 WRC+, played some good defense out there in center field. I mean, Friedl was one of the more underrated players last year. He finished with a 4.4 F-WAR. I mean, very good year. And now you're missing him. So the Reds, at this point, you're looking at guys like Will Benson. You got Stuart Fairchild there. You're probably going to do some kind of a platoon. So, it's pretty quite a week for the Reds, right? Losing Noel V. Marte to the suspension for PEDs. I can't believe guys are still even getting popped. At this point, I don't know, man. I wonder what stuff other guys out there are taking. It almost feels like at this point, and this is coming from a guy that is, that's been in the powerlifting world for a little while, right? Where I've had competitions before, and a lot of the times, sometimes it's just about passing a drug test, right? However, Major League Baseball, they got really good ones. So I don't know. I'm just like thinking out loud, basically. Like, how does a guy still get popped, right? So it makes me just wonder, like, what other stuff is out there? And they're just passing these drug tests. I don't know, man. Who knows? I don't know. I just find it crazy that someone is still getting popped. Who knows, man? But you don't go out Noel V. Marte. Now you don't got Friedl. So now it's funny because we looked at this Reds team like there were too many players, right? It almost makes me wonder, because I feel like we have seen this over the last few years. Have you noticed when guys end up getting suspended, do you notice that teams make moves like way before? I can't think of an exact example, but I know it's happened. I just can't think of an exact example. But when you, like for the Reds, for example, they added Jeimer Candelario, and you're thinking, why are they adding Jeimer Candelario? Like, huh? Like, why? They already had so many guys, and it just so happens Noel V. Marte got popped. I'm speculating. I actually wonder if the Reds a while ago, maybe they caught wind of a possible positive test for Noel V. Marte, and they were thinking, all right, okay, if we're going to be losing Marte for most of this year, we should probably go out there and go get a guy. So I'm just saying. I'm speculating. Don't mind me. But now, because of these two guys not going to be with the Reds for a while. Now it definitely opens up some playing time. So, hey, but they still got a lot of talented hitters here. I still think this Reds team is going to be very good, but losing Friedel is definitely tough. That guy's a spark plug for you, but luckily they still got some guys like Matt McClain, Ellie De La Cruz. He got red hot last year. Let's see if after that, though, he just completely fell off. So let's see if he can be a bit more consistent. Got some other really solid bats, right? Steer, excited about Christian Encarnacion Strand. You do have Candelario. So I do think the Reds are going to be solid still, but losing Friedel definitely hurts. So everyone, speaking, my goodness, my nose is so itchy right now. Speaking of the Reds and the Marlins, I think this is a good time to give a shout out for tonight's sponsor, and that is BetUS. I'll be right back. Just going to play a little commercial for you.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic...
Okay, so BetUS, shouting them out tonight. Let's actually go over some odds for the Reds and the Marlins. Let's go look at their chances to make the playoffs, and let's go look at over-unders for their win totals. So we got the Marlins, we got the Reds. Let's pull up these odds here. And right now, the Reds, they're at plus 150 to make the playoffs. And I actually agree with that. And I actually think, or I agree with that, I think they will have a great shot at making the playoffs. I'm very high on the Reds this coming year. And I think right now that could be a great value to take advantage of, plus 150. So if I put down, let's say $50, so it looks like $50 is the limit. So if I threw down $50, I would win 75. That's a pretty decent value if you ask me. So I'm going to throw that down, right? And when it comes to the Reds, regular season wins, over 82.5, under 82.5. I think they're going to beat the 80. I think they're going to go over that, right? So if I threw down something for the minus 120, right? So what is the limit here? $50 is the limit, right? So if I threw down 50 as of right now, that would win me just a little over $40, right? So not bad. Is it really the best value? Maybe not. Maybe not. As for the Marlins making the playoffs, they're at plus 250. I don't like that one. I'm telling you, I don't feel the Marlins this year. I just don't. But if you were feeling spicy about the Marlins still finding a way to make the playoffs, I mean, I'm just saying, if you threw down $50, you'd win 125. So I don't feel spicy about that one. So I'm not going to do that. And then honestly, I'm going under on the 77.5. So it's at minus 115. If you're feeling confident about it, if I threw down $50, $43 would be my winnings. So I'm just saying. The Reds, out of all these, I do like the plus 150 for them to make the playoffs. So, hey, if you're feeling good about it, go lay a bet down yourself. I just did not too long ago. There's a whole bunch of other ones, too. You got March Madness right around the corner. You got basketball still going on every night. Got hockey, golf, everything else. Go check it out. BetUS. Link is in the description down below. Use the code JOIN125. You get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits with a minimum deposit of $100. So everyone, go check it out. Let's go over a couple more stories here. Not going to keep you too much longer. But the San Diego Padres, they got themselves a center fielder. Jackson Merrill, top prospect. How about Jackson Merrill, man? He's been having himself a good spring. And taking a look, the Padres, as of right now, they're comfortable going with Merrill as their center fielder. And you're thinking, center fielder, right? I mean, I thought he was a shortstop. Well, Jackson Merrill, yeah, he's a pretty solid shortstop, but the guy is so athletic that they're okay with putting him out there in center field, and he's taking the job by the horns, and he's just running away with it. And you got to give him a lot of credit. He's the number 1 prospect. He's 7th overall on Fangraphs. He's going to be a special player. And if we're taking a look at his spring numbers, he's having a very good spring. 13 games, hitting .351, on base of .400, a .595 slugging, couple of homers this spring, a .164 WRC plus, solid numbers. He has clearly just done everything he needs to do to win this job. And it really comes in handy for the Padres too, because people were wondering, well, what's happening here? Like, they need some outfielders, right? Remember, they were connected with guys like Jaron Duran, Sal Frelick. Nothing happened there. And they just said, you know what? We got this kid named Jackson Merrill. He's our number 1 prospect. Let's see what he looks like out there in center field. And he's done well. All right, so if we were to go take a look at Jackson Merrill's scouting report on Baseball America, very good hitter, right? Definitely an advanced hitter, has a very good definitely a very good approach at the plate. They give him a 60 on the hit tool. The power's still developing. He added size like a few years ago before he got drafted. So there is some raw power there, but it's the hit tool that's really going to carry him in the future. I see Jackson Merrill being like a 20 to 30 home run kind of a guy, but excellent in the field. A shortstop obviously is his natural position, right? But this is why, and I want to point this out for people at home, this is why a lot of teams where you might be thinking to yourself, let's say you have a shortstop like for the future for the next several years, right? Like the Yankees with Volpe or the Orioles with Jackson Holiday, right? You have these teams and then they end up drafting like another shortstop in like the next year's draft or whatever. And you're thinking, we already have a shortstop. Why are they drafting a shortstop? Shortstops are the players that you build your team around. Why? Because usually they're the most athletic, right? Because to handle the position of shortstop, you have to be very athletic, right? Or you have to have at minimum very good instincts, right? You don't have to be the fastest guy to be a shortstop, but you have to have those natural instincts, because shortstop is a very demanding position, right? Obviously, going to your left, going to your right, doing the double plays, right? There's a lot that goes on at the shortstop position. That's why the catching position is so important. Shortstop, center field, right? That up the middle. Shortstop is huge, but they tend to be the more gifted athletes, and the good shortstops are gifted with their instincts, right? So that's where Jackson Merrill, they felt like he could transition to center field very easily. And this is why when they draft young talent, you see a lot of shortstops get drafted, right? Because you can move them around. And we see it here with Jackson Merrill. So, hey, I like the aggressive move from the Padres. They kind of have to switch some things up this year. You know, new coach, new manager, and Schilt already made a big move, moving Xander Bogaerts to second. I think Schilt has come in here and said, listen, leave your stupid egos at the door. We want to win some games. Bogaerts, cut the crap. You're not that good of a shortstop compared to Ha-Seong Kim. That guy needs to be the shortstop. I don't care how much money you make. You're moving to second base. Okay, he didn't word it like that, but I mean, come on. Like, Bogaerts needed to move to second base. That was very clear. Not a bad shortstop, but he's not better than Ha-Seong Kim. So, pointing that out. So, I think for the Padres, I don't know, man. Something just was weird last year. In my personal opinion, I felt like there were a lot of egos. There were too many cooks in the kitchen, right? When you got too many egos going on, I feel like it doesn't really help with the cohesiveness. And that's another thing Jackson Merrill gets raved about very highly, is his makeup, right? A lot of scouts have said about Jackson Merrill, he's a great guy to have in the clubhouse, right? Because he just meshes with everyone. He's a good leader in the clubhouse. Guy goes out there and plays hard. So I think that's a good move right there, too. all of a sudden, this Padres team, I think, is looking really interesting. Now, I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say Jackson Merrill is going to have this phenomenal season, but at the very worst, I feel like he can't hurt the team, right? You've added a lot of pitching. Dylan Cease not too long ago. The Padres are going to be interesting. They did lose a lot. A lot. I want to actually remind people how much the Padres actually lost. You brought in Michael King and, stuff like that. Losing Soto was huge. That was a lot that you lost. That was like a 6-win player you lost. But it wasn't even just him. You lost Hader, one of the best closers in the game. People think you lost Waka. Well, all right, Waka's okay. Waka was like almost a 3 Fangraph WAR pitcher last year. That's a decent loss in itself. Nick Martinez. You definitely lost some guys. Now, you brought in some guys, but holy cow. I mean, who was the other guys? Gary Sanchez? That was a guy that came in and really helped. I mean, I've said the name Blake Snell like a million times, but yes, you lost Blake Snell, right? Seth Lugo, don't forget about him. That was a guy that was like a 2 Fangraph WAR guy last year. They lost a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Padres are this coming year. Sure, you brought in Cease, you brought in King. This bullpen is completely revamped. Matsui, Santos, Peralta, go. Suarez is going to be your closer. They need more out of Suarez this coming year. I'm very intrigued with this Padres team. I think they could be really solid. But then again, I also wonder if maybe they end up being kind of around the same as last year, because while they did bring in a lot of talent, they also just lost a lot of talent too. But hey, sometimes a better clubhouse, sometimes that's really all you need, right? Sorry to bring up my Red Sox, but 2013, times were so tough in that 2012 year, 2011, the meltdown, and then 2013, you brought in a bunch of guys that weren't really looked at as guys that were going to carry you to the playoffs, but they all came together and their chemistry was through the roof. Maybe we could see some chemistry really be a big factor for the Padres this year. So overall, I like the Jackson Merrill move. I think that was very solid. Speaking of my Red Sox, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but excuse my giraffe, Nick Robbie. But Alex Cora announcing today Josh Winkowski will go to the bullpen, which pretty much leaves the rotation coming down to the last spot. I think Tanner Houck is going to get into this rotation. But you're looking at the 5 spot, in my opinion, as either Cooper Criswell, the big signing for the Red Sox this offseason, and not Lucas Giolito because he's not playing. So Cooper Criswell, that's the guy for the Red Sox this year. Him and Garrett Whitlock for the 5 spot. Listen, am I crazy to say this? Am I actually more inclined to go with Cooper freaking Criswell for the rotation? I can't believe I'm actually saying it. I mean, look at this. I mean, what in the world am I even saying right now? But this is how much I don't want the Red Sox to put Garrett Whitlock in the rotation. I don't want him in the rotation. I want him in the bullpen. The guy was lights out in the bullpen a couple of years ago. He was carrying that Red Sox bullpen. Never should have left the bullpen. I don't care what anyone says. I know, yes, you want to try and maximize his value, yada, yada, yada. I know a good reliever when I see him. Garrett Whitlock should have never left that rotation or bullpen. Okay, fine. Maybe try him out for a few starts. But it's been how long now? He hasn't been able to do it. I don't know. I don't know, man. I want Whitlock in that bullpen. Could you actually see Cooper Criswell as the number 5 for the Red Sox? Oh, my goodness. But maybe. I mean, this spring so far, he's done okay. A 3.77 on the ERA, a 3.39 on the FIP. Sounds like a pretty good number 5 if you ask me. While Garrett Whitlock, he's been doing okay. Lately, he got roughed up a little bit, but he's been pitching better. He's been pitching overall. The numbers do look solid with him. Listen, I don't doubt the ability of Garrett Whitlock. I am not a big fan of the health with Whitlock. He does look a little, more built this spring training. So maybe that could help. He just worries me in this rotation. Either way, you're going to see Whitlock or Criswell be the number 5. You know what would be the best solution? I have a guy. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. I mean, I don't think I've mentioned him at all this offseason. He goes by the name of Jordan Montgomery. I don't know. That sounds like a pretty good guy to add to the rotation if you ask me. And then the problem solves itself. You can just put Whitlock and Criswell both in the bullpen. And there you go. But I don't know. What are even the chances at this point? I'm starting to actually put in my head that Jordan Montgomery is going to be a Chicago Cub. I'm starting to wonder that. Like, where else is that guy going to go? If he wants a long-term deal, at least 5 years, I feel like the best spot for him is the Chicago Cubs. I don't know. The Red Sox don't really want to seem to go any kind of a long-term deal. What other team is going to give him a long-term deal? Does he want to go out west? I don't know about that. Phillies probably only want to do a short-term deal with him. So I don't know about that. Astros, they want the short-term deal with Blake Snell. So that's probably not going to work. Cardinals, I mean, could the Cardinals be up for a reunion? But would they be okay with giving 5 years at least? I don't know. I feel like if there's any team that's motivated to add some pitching and is willing to give a 5-year deal, I'm honestly wondering if it's going to be the Cubs. I think the Red Sox should have done it 8 years ago. But what can you do? I don't know. Everyone, I'm going to wrap this up here.